Hey everyone, this is Tom with KD9CPB.com. We're going to go through a video demo of the recent set of scripts that I cooked up to automate a way setting up a VPN tunnel between my OPNsense virtual machine running on my desktop and Google Cloud so that we can start up an EVE-NG instance in Google Cloud. We'll SSH into this cool fancy AOS CX switch in Google Cloud from my network's security toolkit 32 VM. And then once we're done doing that, we're going to press a key. The script is going to completely shut down the EVE-NG instance in Google Cloud. And it's also going to remove that VPN tunnel so that Google doesn't charge us a dime while we're not using this lab. For the network connectivity and power, at least, we'll still have to pay for the storage. But so to do all of this, we need to get started in VirtualBox here. So I'll go ahead and power on the OPNsense VM. You can see that for my network settings, I have one interface is on this internal network that I'll also have my network security toolkit 32 virtual machine on. The other one is just on my plain old home Wi-Fi. It's just a cheap old ASUS router, nothing fancy there right now. I'll go ahead and fire up the NST32 VM as well. So that's going to take a couple minutes. My machine's actually pretty old. It's from about 2014, and that's perfectly okay because one thing that I really, really love nowadays with Google Cloud is it's super cheap to get a virtual machine instance for EVE-NG to do whatever type of network home lab you want to do. And so recently I've been doing this particular instance type where you get 16 virtual CPUs, you get 60 gigs of RAM. I think it's a little bit under 55 cents an hour, so it's pretty good stuff, but we definitely want to make sure that we're only running this for the hours and minutes that we're actually playing around with EVE-NG. It can get pretty expensive if you accidentally leave this stuff on for more than a day or two, or if you leave it on indefinitely for a full month. Those 55 cents an hour, it adds up quicker than I would have thought. And we can see right now that this EVE-NG instance, it's shut off, it stopped, it's just hanging out there in the cloud. We're not paying for any of the specific instance resources, but we do have to pay the monthly fee for all the storage that it burns up in Google Cloud, which is pretty minimal in my opinion. So let's take a quick look. Looks like our NST VM is just about finished starting. Let me log in here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And while we're waiting for the UI to pop up, just worth noting, if you haven't played around with Google Cloud in an EVE-NG instance yet, there's a post that I did a couple weeks ago that walks you through the whole process of installing EVE-NG into Google Cloud and getting the OPNsense VPN initially set up on the virtual machine side here at my home to make sure that it all talks with Google Cloud appropriately. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Okay, so looks like NST32 is fully started up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change directory into the folder that has all my scripts, and I'm going to launch the Eve start script. So the first thing it's going to do, it's going to check my public IP address, which I have censored out just because I don't want to broadcast it to the planet today. And then it's going to look at the OPNsense config. It's going to see, oh, hey, the IP is the same. We can go ahead and set up the VPN tunnel into Google Cloud. And that's pretty critical because if you have the wrong IP address as your identity, it's not going to work, and it's just not going to be any fun to troubleshoot that. So we'll give this another couple seconds while EVE-NG is creating that tunnel. And I'm going to go ahead, I'll actually open up another tab here while the script is running, and we will start pinging the EVE-NG instance in Google Cloud. There's its IP address. The script is actually going to start pinging it in a couple seconds here, and it'll let us know once that EVE-NG instance is up. I just like having another set of eyes to see that in the terminal here. So any second now, we'll see the script says, hey, the instance isn't pinging yet. I've turned it on. I've been running for no minutes right now. We'll just give this a couple more seconds and we should see, yep, there we go. EVE-NG is alive via the VPN tunnel. I can see by my ping over here that it is indeed alive. And don't take my word for it though. Let's go ahead and refresh the Google Cloud Platform. We can see that the EVE-NG instance is running. We are now getting charged our 55-ish cents an hour to run the EVE-NG instance, which is good stuff. So let's make every second of that time count. And assuming I can click on the right icon here, we'll fire up Firefox on our Network Security Toolkit 32 virtual machine. And we'll get into the EVE-NG web interface where we can fire up some of the network equipment I have in the EVE-NG home lab. There we go. Oh, looks like I'm already logged in. Great. So we can see right now we got this pretty boring home lab of really just an Aruba CX switch directly connected to this Cloud9 interface. And it's going to take Aruba OSCX a good minute or two to fully boot up. So I'll go ahead and take this time to quickly show you guys on my terminal here. I'm going to go ahead and actually I'll do this from the Google Cloud Platform SSH option. We're going to wait a minute for this terminal to pop up so you can see that there's no smoke and mirrors. This is actually in Google Cloud. I don't have some like shady hypervisor sitting in my home that's doing this. This is actually going out to a public cloud and EVE-NG via this tunnel. And if I do a quick ifconfig for pnet9, I believe, yep, there it is. So we can see here pnet9 has the internet address of 10.142.1. If I pull up our diagram that we had earlier on the screen, we can see that this pnet9 10.142.1, so that is on the EVE-NG instance. It has this interface that's bridged to the AOSCX switch. And what I'll start doing here is I'll actually do a sudo tcp dump -i pnet9, and we'll start taking a look at the traffic that is going between the EVE-NG instance and Google Cloud and this Aruba OSCX virtual image here. And so on my workstation, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start a continuous ping to that Aruba OSCX host. And so what's really awesome is even though it's not done booting up yet, we can see that from my virtual machine here in my condo, we're sending all of these ARP requests out to that virtual interface in EVE-NG up in the cloud. So that's pretty good stuff right there. And you might have also noticed that so far I've been playing around with AOSCX quite a bit. And the reason for that is it's free, unlike a lot of the other vendors out there that make it pretty difficult to get all of their various network operating systems for home web use. Aruba's been pretty awesome about making that free. Ethan Banks, one of the guys from Packet Pushers, and I'm a pretty big fan of, did this post about it recently. And if you don't want to drink the Aruba Kool-Aid, that's totally cool too. He's got this other post that shows some of the other vendors that are doing things that make it pretty easy to get their images. Definitely something to keep in mind if you're still in school and don't have one of those really cool logins to get all the good stuff from some of the vendors with support contracts. So it looks like my continuous ping is starting to get some good replies. I'll go ahead and validate that on this Google Cloud SSH interface. That looks good. So I'll go ahead and I'll kill that continuous ping. I'm going to leave this SSH session up to the EVE-NG instance open. And we'll go ahead and from the NST32 virtual machine, I'm just going to go ahead and SSH into that switch. We'll make sure that it's there, it's legitimate. Again, no smoke and mirrors. You can see the HP Enterprise and Aruba stuff that pops on the screen. We'll just take a look at the running config. There's not a whole lot going on today, but it's there, it's in the cloud. We can do whatever we want in this EVE-NG instance and have all that traffic via this VPN come back home where we can run whatever VMs I want on my workstation and get some pretty good stuff, some good experience there. So I'll go ahead and let's say that we had a more lab. We've been playing around for a couple hours and we're ready to call it a day and shut everything down so that Google stops charging us that 55-ish cents an hour to do all this work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll press any key on my keyboard. Did that right now. And what that's going to do is it causes that script to send out an Ansible ad hoc command to shut down the EVE-NG instance. We saw in Google Cloud that, hey, you have a minute before the computer powers off, which is pretty nice because if I did that accidentally, I'd have some time to back the change out and do that. So that's pretty neat. So we gotta wait a good 90 seconds for all of this stuff to start shutting down. So I'll go ahead and kill a little bit of that time just mentioning that if you do have like a really cool, really elaborate lab setup in your EVE-NG Google Cloud instance, let's say that you did that as part of the first 90 days that they give all new customers that $300 credit. So let's say like you built out something super cool and you built it to, let's say you're showing it off to your wife about how awesome all this stuff is. And then you go through that 90 days of credit and it's like, well, I don't really want to spend all this money with Google Cloud, having to pay out of my own pocket to do all these fun EVE-NG things, but you got your wife super interested. She wants to go ahead and keep playing with all this cool stuff you built. Fear not, I actually ended up writing a quick guide on how you can move a Google Cloud EVE-NG instance from one account to another. Let's say that she still has her $300 free customer credit. You can go ahead and move that with a couple tricks there. Obviously, make sure you follow the Google terms of service, but if you do build out, really cool, really elaborate home lab like this one I did on my old home lab before I rebuilt it all with OPNsense, just something to keep in mind. Definitely want to make every single dollar go as far as it can in the home lab universe. Okay, so it looks here like the Ansible playbook to what I like to call double tap the EVE-NG instance is running right now. And so even though we softly shut down the EVE-NG instance with that Ansible um, ad hoc command, this is actually going into the Google Cloud API, double checking that the VM is indeed turned off. And any second now, we'll see it come back to us that it's deleting the VPN tunnel and that we're not going to get charged any hourly rates for any of that connectivity or the EVE-NG instance itself. And one thing I didn't show off earlier, just because I don't want to have my public IP broadcasted to the whole world, is when all of this is working with OPNsense, you should see in the VPN tab of the Google Cloud Platform hybrid connectivity that you'll have, your IP address, Google's IP address. It's established. Everything looks good. Let's just see here. It looks like the script did finish up. And so just to show how this looks, I'll go ahead and refresh the Google Cloud Platform VM instances page. We can see it stopped. The script did its thing. Our EVE-NG instance is shut down. We're not paying for it. It's really good stuff. And then I'll go ahead back into that hybrid connectivity VPN page. And we can see here that there's nothing. We still have our Google Cloud VPN gateway. We can run the script again, and it will go ahead and set everything up, but we're not going to have to pay that extra 5 cents an hour to have the VPN tunnel up as well. So that's all for today.